The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F Asterisk by Mark Manson is not your typical self-help book. Instead of telling you to always think positive and strive for endless success, Manson flips the script. He challenges the notion that we should always aim for happiness and success, suggesting that life becomes richer and more meaningful when we focus on what truly matters and let go of the rest. The book is a refreshing, no-nonsense guide to living a more grounded and fulfilling life. Manson opens the book with a provocative idea: stop trying so hard. He recounts the story of Charles Bukowski, a famous but unconventional writer whose tombstone reads, "Don't try." Bukowski was far from a success story in the traditional sense. He was an alcoholic, a gambler, and spent years working dead-end jobs. However, he embraced his flaws and wrote about them honestly, without pretending to be something he wasn't. This authenticity eventually resonated with millions of readers, making him a literary icon. Manson uses Bukowski's story to illustrate the power of not caring about societal expectations or trying to fit into a mold. He argues that when we stop obsessing over what we should be and start embracing who we truly are, we become more authentic and, ironically, more successful. It's not about being indifferent to everything, but rather about caring deeply about the right things. My thoughts. This concept resonates with a growing movement toward authenticity and mindfulness in modern culture. In a world where social media bombards us with images of perfection, the idea of not trying in the traditional sense is liberating. It allows us to reclaim our energy from pursuits that don't align with our true selves and redirect it toward what genuinely brings us fulfillment. In a practical sense, this chapter encourages us to reevaluate our goals and motivations. Are we pursuing something because it's what we truly want, or because we feel we should want it? This self-reflection can lead to a more intentional way of living, where our actions are driven by internal desires rather than external pressures. It's about prioritizing what really matters and letting go of the rest, which is a crucial step toward mental and emotional well-being. Chapter 2. Happiness is a problem. Embrace the struggles. In this chapter, Manson challenges the notion that happiness comes from avoiding problems and achieving constant pleasure. He introduces the concept of the hedonic treadmill, where people constantly chase after new pleasures, only to find themselves just as unsatisfied as before. Instead of seeking happiness by avoiding pain, Manson argues that we should embrace life's inevitable struggles. Manson tells the story of the Buddha, who lived a life of luxury but became deeply unhappy. The Buddha realized that life's suffering is unavoidable, and that the path to peace is through accepting and understanding this suffering rather than running from it. Manson extends this idea to modern life, suggesting that the pursuit of happiness often leads to more dissatisfaction because it's based on the false premise that life should be free of pain. My thoughts. This chapter aligns with the psychological concept of positive disintegration, where individuals grow and develop through facing and overcoming challenges. Rather than seeing problems as obstacles to happiness, they can be reframed as opportunities for growth. This perspective shifts the focus from avoiding discomfort to embracing it and as a necessary part of a meaningful life. This idea is incredibly powerful in a world that often equates happiness with the absence of struggle. By redefining happiness as the process of engaging with and overcoming challenges, we move away from a passive, pleasure-seeking mentality and toward an active, purpose-driven life. It also frees us from the constant pressure to be happy all the time, allowing us to experience a wider range of emotions without judgment. In practice, this might mean shifting your mindset when faced with a difficult situation. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" consider asking, "What can I learn from this?" Or, "How can this challenge help me grow?" This reframing can transform how you experience and handle adversity. Chapter 3. You are not special. The danger of exceptionalism. Manson tackles the modern obsession with being extraordinary, arguing that the belief that everyone should be exceptional is both unrealistic and harmful. He critiques the culture of exceptionalism, where everyone is told they can be anything they want, which often leads to feelings of inadequacy when reality doesn't match these lofty expectations. Manson references the case of Albert Einstein, often hailed as a genius, but who himself admitted that his achievements were not the result of exceptional talent alone, but of consistent hard work and curiosity. Manson argues that by accepting our ordinariness, we relieve ourselves of the pressure to be something we're not. This acceptance allows us to focus on what really matters, finding meaning in our everyday lives rather than constantly striving for greatness. My thoughts. This chapter challenges the toxic culture of comparison that is so prevalent in today's society, especially with the rise of social media. The constant bombardment of others' achievements can make us feel inadequate, leading to anxiety and depression. By accepting that we are not special and that we don't need to be, we can release ourselves from this unhealthy cycle and find contentment in our everyday lives. The pursuit of exceptionalism can often be a distraction from what really matters. It can lead to burnout, strained relationships, and a sense of emptiness, even when external success is achieved. The real challenge is not in becoming extraordinary, but in finding contentment with who we are and what we have. This doesn't mean giving up on ambition, but rather realigning it with our true values and desires, rather than societal expectations. In practical terms, this might mean focusing less on outward success and more on inner fulfillment. For example, instead of measuring your worth by your job title or income, consider what brings you joy and fulfillment on a daily basis, whether it's spending time with loved ones, pursuing a hobby, or contributing to your community. Chapter 4. The Value of Suffering. Choose your struggles wisely. This chapter delves into the importance of choosing the right things to care about, as our values determine the quality of our lives. Manson argues that much of our suffering comes from caring about things that don't truly matter, like social status, material wealth, or the approval of others. Instead, we should focus on values that lead to meaningful and fulfilling lives, such as honesty, responsibility, and personal growth. Manson introduces the concept of good and bad values. Good values are reality-based, socially constructive, and immediate, while bad values are superstitious, socially destructive, and reliant on external events. For example, valuing honesty is a good value because it's within our control and leads to positive outcomes in our relationships. On the other hand, valuing wealth as a measure of self-worth is a bad value because it's based on external factors and can lead to unhappiness. My thoughts. This chapter touches on the importance of values in shaping our experiences and our satisfaction with life. When we prioritize values that are within our control, such as personal growth, honesty, or kindness, we empower ourselves to lead more fulfilling lives. Conversely, when we prioritize external validation, we set ourselves up for disappointment because these are things we can't fully control. The concept of choosing your struggles wisely is deeply empowering. It shifts the focus from trying to eliminate problems, which is impossible, to choosing the right problems, ones that align with your values and contribute to your growth. This idea is particularly relevant in today's fast-paced, achievement-oriented culture, where it's easy to get caught up in chasing goals that don't actually bring us happiness. In practical terms, this might involve a values assessment. Ask yourself what you truly care about and why. Then evaluate whether your daily actions align with those values. If not, it may be time to reprioritize and make changes that bring your life more in line with what really matters to you. Chapter 5. You're always choosing. Take responsibility. Manson emphasizes the importance of taking responsibility for our own lives. He argues that while we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond to those events. This concept is central to Manson's philosophy. By accepting responsibility for our choices, we empower ourselves to live more intentionally and make decisions that align with our true values. Manson introduces the idea of the responsibility/fault fallacy, where people often confuse responsibility with blame. Just because something is not your fault doesn't mean you're not responsible for it. For example, if you inherit a large debt, it's not your fault, but you're still responsible for dealing with it. Manson argues that accepting responsibility for our circumstances, even when they're unfair, is crucial for personal growth and empowerment. My thoughts. This chapter aligns with the psychological concept of locus of control, where individuals with an internal locus of control believe they can influence their outcomes through their own actions, while those with an external locus of control feel powerless and blame outside forces. By shifting toward an internal locus of control, we become more resilient and proactive in our lives. Taking responsibility is a powerful way to reclaim control over your life. It's about acknowledging that while you can't control every event, you can control your response. This mindset can transform how you approach challenges, turning obstacles into opportunities for growth. It also encourages a proactive approach to life, where you're not waiting for things to happen to you, but rather, you're making things happen. In practice, this might mean shifting your focus from what's wrong in your life to what you can do about it. For example, instead of feeling victimized by a difficult work situation, consider what actions you can take to improve it, whether it's seeking additional training, having a difficult conversation, or even exploring new job opportunities. This proactive approach fosters a sense of agency and empowerment. Chapter 6. You're wrong about everything. The growth of uncertainty. In this chapter, Manson argues that our beliefs and perceptions are often wrong, and that the key to personal growth is embracing uncertainty. He suggests that many of our problems stem from the fact that we cling to our beliefs too tightly, often refusing to see the world from a different perspective. By acknowledging that we don't have all the answers and being open to change, we can grow and improve as individuals. Manson explains that the human brain is wired to create meaning from chaos, which often leads us to form rigid beliefs that we defend even in the face of contradictory evidence. This rigidity can prevent us from learning and growing. Manson encourages readers to adopt a mindset of constant questioning, where we remain open to new information and willing to change our minds when presented with new evidence. My thoughts. This chapter touches on the psychological concept of cognitive dissonance, where we experience mental discomfort when confronted with information that contradicts our beliefs. Manson's advice to embrace uncertainty is essentially a call to reduce cognitive dissonance by being open to new ideas and perspectives. By doing so, we not only grow intellectually, but also become more adaptable and resilient in the face of change. The willingness to be wrong is a sign of intellectual humility, which is a crucial trait for personal growth. It allows us to learn from others, adapt to new information, and evolve our thinking. In today's polarized world, where people often cling to their beliefs, even in the face of contradictory evidence, embracing uncertainty is more important than ever. In practical terms, this might involve seeking out perspectives that challenge your own, whether through reading, conversations, or experiences. It's about being curious rather than defensive, and seeing challenges to your beliefs as opportunities for growth rather than threats. This approach not only broadens your understanding, but also makes you more empathetic and open-minded. Chapter 7. Failure is the way forward. Embrace your mistakes. Manson challenges the fear of failure, suggesting that failure is not something to be avoided, but embraced as a crucial part of the learning process. He argues that our culture's obsession with success often leads to a fear of failure, which can paralyze us and prevent us from taking risks. However, it's through failure that we learn and grow. So avoiding failure means avoiding growth. Manson introduces the concept of the failure/success paradox, where the more we fail, the more we succeed. He explains that each failure teaches us something valuable, and it's this accumulation of knowledge and experience that eventually leads to success. Manson urges readers to stop avoiding failure and start seeing it as a stepping stone to achieving their goals. In this chapter, Manson discusses the importance of setting boundaries and learning to say no. He argues that our ability to say no is directly linked to our freedom and autonomy. By saying no to things that don't align with our values or that drain our energy, we create space for the things that truly matter to us. Manson explains that many people struggle with setting boundaries because they fear rejection or conflict. However, by avoiding the discomfort of saying no, they end up overcommitting and sacrificing their own needs and desires. He encourages readers to practice saying no more often and to see it as an essential part of self-care and self-respect. My thoughts. This chapter highlights the connection between boundaries and mental health. Without clear boundaries, we risk burnout, resentment, and a loss of identity. Saying no is not just about rejecting others. It's about affirming your own priorities and protecting your well-being. This is especially important in a culture that often equates busyness with productivity and worth. Learning to say no is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. It allows you to take control of your time and energy, ensuring that you're investing in the things that truly matter to you. It's also a way to respect your own needs and to communicate your values to others. While saying no can be uncomfortable, especially at first, it becomes easier with practice and can lead to a more balanced and fulfilling life. In practical terms, this might involve assessing your current commitments and identifying areas where you're overextended. Start practicing saying no in low-stakes situations, such as declining a social invitation when you need rest. Over time, you'll become more comfortable setting boundaries in all areas of your life, leading to greater freedom and peace of mind. Chapter 9. And Then You Die. The Finality of Life. Manson concludes the book with a sobering reminder. We're all going to die. He argues that by embracing our mortality, we can live more fully and authentically. The awareness of death forces us to confront what really matters in life and to let go of the trivial concerns that often consume us. Manson discusses how the fear of death can lead to a desperate search for meaning, causing people to cling to ideas, relationships, or achievements that give them a sense of immortality. However, by accepting the inevitability of death, we can free ourselves from this fear and focus on living a life that is true to our values and desires. My thoughts. This chapter touches on existentialism, a philosophical movement that explores the meaning of life in the face of mortality. Existentialists argue that life's impermanence gives it meaning, as it forces us to create our own purpose and make the most of the time we have. By embracing the reality of death, we can live with greater intention and urgency. The awareness of our mortality can be a powerful motivator for living a more meaningful life. It encourages us to prioritize what truly matters and to let go of the things that don't. This perspective can lead to greater clarity and focus as we become more attuned to our values and less concerned with societal expectations. In practical terms, this might involve regular reflection on your life's purpose and whether your current actions align with that purpose. It's about asking yourself, if I knew I only had a year left to live, what would I focus on? This kind of reflection can help you identify what's most important to you and guide your decisions accordingly. It's also a reminder to live with gratitude and presence, appreciating the fleeting nature of life. Conclusion: Living the Subtle Art, Manson's book, is not about not caring at all, but about caring selectively, choosing what to give a F***CK about. The subtle art he speaks of is the art of discerning what is truly important in life and letting go of everything else. It's about living with intention, embracing challenges, and accepting the inevitability of suffering as a part of the human experience.